Well, thanks for doing this today. We're going to talk about two books, Joel and Haggai. And people might not necessarily think those two books are connected, but we're going to connect them today. And as we've talked about this and studied it, to me, Joel is sort of like calamity. Joel is the junk that happens. And then maybe Haggai represents the calamity is over and the dust is settled, and now we're getting back to normal life. At least we could look at it that way. So we're going to start with Joel.
Okay.
And then we're going to finish with Haggai, and this is convenient because they're both fairly short books. We know that Haggai was written around 520 BC, which would have been when the southern tribe of Judah is returning from captivity, and they've come back to their land, and they're clearing the rubble and getting on with their lives again. Whereas Joel, the big thing we know about Joel is at least it references this horrible locust plague.
Yes, over and over again, the day of the Lord, the day of the Lord. And some places that I looked broke it down pretty easily into 5 different areas that the day of the Lord is referencing. They were and still are an agricultural threat in the ancient Near East and in today, and that they can be, a swarm of locusts can be like 460 square miles and in size, and they can have between 40 and 80 million locusts can be packed into less than a half square mile.
Wow.
So when you look at it in that context, when you look and you're like, oh my gosh, I can't, so each locust can eat its weight in plants a day, which is nothing when you have a handful of grasshoppers or locusts. But that amount of size, we're talking 423 million pounds of agriculture that they can destroy. It's like, oh, that'd be disgusting, or that would be, no, it's decimating. It just ruins everything. It's way bigger than we could probably even imagine in our current day context.
Yeah, I think it pretty much meant if that was the year the swarm of locusts came, then nobody was eating anything that year, and the only hope is you have something saved from the previous year, and that they didn't work their way into your storage areas.
Yeah, there's no food for the animals start dying. There's no, if you don't have it stored, like you said, it makes everything come to a screeching and devastating halt. I just kept thinking of locusts, like that makes me think of my sin. It makes me think of, we might think this little sin by itself, and I have yet to meet a human who only has this little sin by itself. So I was like, I just feel reading this like the locusts that are just charging through and decimating everything, that the unchecked sin in my life is what I correlate that to.
You could almost think of the swarm being a character trait that has been put together and built up over years and years and years of individual practices or individual sins. And maybe one little grasshopper is not going to take everything down, but when they begin to dictate who we are and our patterns, then there's devastation. And a lot of people are like, what is wrong with my life? Why can't this work, or why can't that work? And it's like they have been devastated. The day of the Lord, it's interesting. The metaphor here is the worst thing that can happen to a people is an army of grasshoppers. And you can't imagine anything that's going to ruin your life and possibly kill you. And that's sort of like a metaphor of the day, when the day comes. And I'm glad you brought that theme out, because I guess it's 4 or 5 times. You said 5 times. It uses that phrase, the day of the Lord, and it's this metaphor of it.
And the commonality in a lot of this seems to be, it's about when obedience is being refused, when we just refuse to be obedient. It's a catalyst for a lot of other devastating effects. It's a terrifying situation. It's a scary sight. And sometimes we get scared back to Jesus. Like that's the truth of the matter.
I think that's often how, for those of us who become stupid, I think that's usually how it works. Let me read. I don't know if you're referring to chapter 2, but I want to just read the first couple of paragraphs because it just is like, it says it so well. It says, blow the trumpet in Zion, sound the alarm on my holy hill. Let all who live in the land tremble, for the day of the Lord is coming. It's close at hand, a day of darkness and gloom, clouds and blackness, which if you're in the swarm of locusts, it's probably what it looks like. Like dawn spreading across the mountains, a large and mighty army comes, such as never was in ancient times or never will be in ages to come. Before we get to that, I want to ask you, because you mentioned you really like 2:13.
Oh yeah.
Rending your heart instead of your clothes.
Yes, I thought that was true. So, back in the day, when you're grief stricken and you're devastated, when calamity falls on your house, when some horrible tragedy happens, people would rend their garments. They would tear and pull and wring. And it was a sign, it was an outward sign of distress for a situation. And it was common practice. You can see it referenced several times well before Joel in the Old Testament. And in 2:13 in Joel, it says, rend your heart and not your garments. Return to the Lord your God. He is gracious and compassionate, slow to anger and abounding in love. And he relents from sending calamity, which we've heard that, slow to anger, abounding in love. We've had that promise and reassurance before. And I thought that's so powerful because we can lament outwardly all that we like, but when God calls us back to him, it's not about acting right. It's about a change of heart that compels the outward action to change for the better.